To start, it will take about 25 minutes, my keynote, and I will, let's say, go into well-being of interiors as well as sustainability and circularity, and it's all, let's say, followed by the data that we gather to make a building sustainable and as healthy as possible. I like to do the Q&A after my presentation, and we can do that for 10 to 15 minutes, and even after the entire presentation I will be here for another 15 minutes. A small introduction, then you know who we are. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm based with the company Edge in Amsterdam, and we are developers for about 15 to 20 years. And all our buildings we develop or we redevelop, mostly also redevelop. We do 100% sustainable, energy neutral, with full focus on well-being and design. We were one of the first ones of that in Western Europe. We will start this year in London with the first development, and we call our buildings an Edge. We have done the Edge in Amsterdam, which maybe you have heard of, which was one of the most sustainable office buildings according to BREEAM in the world. And out of that building we started to make more a kind of disruptive way of thinking about office buildings. So we try to make an office building. We do that for clients, big clients as you see here in the list, but we also make buildings as a kind of a product. So we just make the best building in the city, and out of that we create a concept around that building, give flexible leases to our clients, and use it a little bit as a kind of hotel where you can lease, let's say, space from one desk up to 5,000 desks in a flexible way. So it could be from 1 month to 5 years to 10 years, all depends on what the client and the tenant wants. We are pretty leading in the Netherlands, in Germany, and on the east coast of the US. That means London. That means New York and Boston. And as I said before, starting in London, in St. Thomas Street. This year we bought an old building, which we will make out of that building a new Edge, and that's almost on the London Bridge station. You see a few highlights of what we are currently doing and what we have done so far. It's going from about 10,000 square meters or 100,000 square feet up to 1 million square feet buildings. And just to say a few words about it, is the material doesn't interest us that much. We make it of concrete, of steel, but the second image on the left on the top line, for instance, is a building in Germany, in Berlin, for an energy company which is fully wood, 35,000 square meters of fully wood for the company Vattenfall. And we do much more buildings in wood. We believe that wood is one of the new materials, not even new of course, which really make a building also in your mind and in your head more sustainable and healthy. I come back to that. We focus on 4 different things in all the buildings that we do, and I will lay them out a little bit more during this keynote, of which I laid out the well-being part today a bit more, because we are on the stage of the International Well Building Institute. So we rate all our buildings, not only BREEAM or LEED, but also the WELL building certificate. What I do myself, I'm in front of the sales team. I talk to potential larger clients to see if they can or be part of our building, be a tenant, or we're going to start a project with them. Currently, if I go back, the building on the right, the tall building, is going to be the headquarters of Amazon in Berlin. And what happened there the last weeks is that Amazon changed fully their way of thinking. They want to be energy neutral, or let's say emission carbon free in 2030. So from one day to the other day, all their buildings have to be, let's say, changed in the way that they not, let's say, that the energy they use, they also gain with the building. That's quite a challenge. But that challenge you will see everywhere in all new projects that's coming along in Europe. We have a certain approach. I told you already something about sustainability. We like that all our buildings are Paris-proof. So since last year, Paris-proof will say that your building is carbon emission free, but also have a very low energy efficiency of about 50 watts per square meter per building. And I have to go back. And in all our buildings, we use an aquifer to let's say, play with the cold and the heat. We try to gain as much energy with the building as we use, which is one of the most difficult things in cities. Outside cities with campuses, it's a bit easier, but that's where we aim for, and what we have to do anyway in 2030. But for instance, in the Netherlands, in 2022, the building should have a certain energy label. If you are not reaching that energy label, the building will be closed to work in. So it's really going to happen in the world of sustainability. We do that with all kind of different ways of designing and the way of reducing energy. I'm not going too much into detail because that's not the subject for today. But with a building you can do much more than we all think. Not only with new buildings, but also with, let's say, buildings of 40, 50 years old. I will show you later. And what we do, and what we did when we started with the Edge 4 years ago, or when we delivered the Edge, it was the first Internet of Things buildings where we also could play with data. And that data gives us so much information that we exactly know what we have to do with the building on energy level, but also on performance and people's level. Come back to that. One of the big topics of today, and in the UK, maybe it's a little bit behind, but what you see, for instance, in Denmark, in the Netherlands, is making buildings circular. The building that I'm going to talk about, it's a building called Edge Olympic. It was a building of 40 years old, and where we almost reused 55% of the material of the building to bring back in the new building. And I will have some examples for that, but normally it was very difficult, but if you change your business model, if you change your supply chain, you can do really much to use the old materials of the building, to upgrade them, and also to do that for a lower price, which is one of the key elements of what we do, because we are making buildings for the market. We believe also that we can have some influence on the behavior of people in buildings. We cannot do that ourselves. We have to do that with the tenants, but we can make the building, let's say, behavior positive proof by, let's say, having much more space for bicycles, having much more space for electrical cars. All the buildings that we do are no cars anymore allowed who go on fuel. And biking in the Netherlands is an easy one. But for sure there will be a big bike parking garage also when we start in London. And we also team up with all kind of different companies to also give, let's say, more mobility. Here you see some charges, that we also influence the mobility of the people in those buildings and the tenants in those buildings. Design is an important one. I'm not going too much into detail, but we work mostly with architects who understand what the client wants. And although there could be, let's say, the big guns, we try to manage and give the architect a kind of blueprint of the building that we want. And the blueprint means we give them a book with the content of the highest value in sustainability and well-being, and they make their design. So the role of the architect will also be different in the buildings that we do. Now you see a few examples, and you see everywhere, I think, when you walk around here, that green, I see behind me, is a big thing. We're already doing that for a few years, and it's not helping you to make a building, let's say, in a way that you can breathe much easier, but everything what happens in your mind when you have real green close to you, it really, really makes a difference. Space makes a difference. Make your space bigger for people. Make let's say, floors different than only open floors. I come back on that. What we do as well is, you see on the, for instance, on the right part of this sheet, we make our own products, and we make our own products with about 6-7 suppliers. For instance, we make a digital ceiling. That ceiling has acoustics in it, has the light. We do that with Signify. Has about possibilities to put 20 sensors in it. If you see it on the top part of that light, there's a possibility to put 20 sensors in it. There are now 10 sensors in it for acoustics, for temperature, for localization, for VOCs, so how many parcels, certain parcels are going around in the building or in the room, humidity, CO2, so everything today can be measured, and with that measurement and that data we can change the building for the good. We also know how the building is performing. And then well-being. Well-being is, since I think 3-4 years, a big thing. You see that also big corporates are really changing in thinking about how do we, let's say, change the buildings for the employees that we have. And most of the important things for the larger companies we work for is that talent and attracting talent is a big thing. You see that in London, you see that in Amsterdam, but you see that also even in smaller cities. To attract talent for the larger companies is extremely difficult. And if you are caring for your building, for your space, for the well-being, for the sustainability, the new generation of workers really wants to have something different. Otherwise they're going to work home or at the coffee shop or whatever. But you see here some ideas. What can you do? The bikes are coming back, but also free yoga lessons, up to that you show how a building functions, that people know what are the best places. But don't make the building too occupied, not making the building too open space. Make all kinds of spaces for different people, and don't try to squeeze your floors by getting so much more people in a space as possible. And you see that clients are changing also that way of behavior in playing with space and playing with those kind of well-being stuff. What we have done in our building, I'll come later to that because I'll tell you a little bit more about Edge Olympic, where we have changed a lot of things, is that there are, I think, 15 different spaces in the building itself. There are already 8 different meeting rooms, informal, formal, large, small, with couches, without couches, where you can talk, where you can not talk, where you may call, where you may not call, etc., etc. And everything what we do is covered by technology. And we started with that about 5 years ago. I think we were one of the first ones to do so. And smart and making your building and, let's say, Internet of Things building to create data, and with that data you can also be much more efficient in, for instance, your facility management, but also in your energy management, is a big thing. We do not, let's say, add technology because of technology. Technology is only helping us out to make a building more sustainable, healthier, or to make, let's say, the workplace for people better. A standard building has a lot of different elements in it, but if you really want to have an IT building, you have to combine everything. And everybody can influence that. I also can influence it myself, but also can see how our Unilever building in New York is functioning and if things are running yes or running not good. With that information, you also can give much more guarantees to the tenant or to the owner of the building. So buildings become intelligent, but intelligent for the user as well as the tenant, as well as the facility management, as well as the asset managers. So for a lot of different people. And to also, to already answer one of the questions, is the most difficult thing to make a building, let's say, connected for the users. Why should a user use an app, or why should a user use technology in the building? And I'll later come back on that. Some examples. We currently are building a whole platform of how a building is performing. We do that together with Microsoft, and Microsoft is going to make a platform out of that together with us. And on this first one, there is a small person sign with, I think there is written 95%. We believe that we can say something about productivity or the performance of people in a building. It's not that we know how productive they are, but we can create an environment in which they can be, let's say, have a higher performance or a higher productivity. So we can influence CO2, we can influence humidity, we can influence temperature, they can influence temperature themselves. If you sit, for instance, in one of our rooms and the CO2 goes up and it goes about 800 BPM, you get a notification on your phone that you have to open the door, or automatically more air is going into the space, or you have to take a walk. So you really have to be also in that way make the building intelligent to help you out and to make the space as good as possible. We can say a few things about the results that we think are we already in the last 4 or 5 years with our smart buildings have reached. If you bring technology to sustainability and health, we believe that the performance of people is going up extremely, but also sick leave is going down. And we guarantee at least 50% lower energy bill as you had before in your buildings. Why can we do so? Because all kind of buildings which are 30 or 40 years old, so much energy is going out. With all the data that we have, we make green lease contracts with clients for even 15 years, because we really know what's going on in the building per second, per square meter, per day. So in that way, we can guarantee certain things that a lot of others cannot do. I'd like to go now to the actual Olympic building. We are having our headquarters ourselves there. And you see people smile a lot in this building. And the reason of that is that we give them the right space. And the reason also is that we have some flexible operators in this office space who also guarantee that when it's a building of 12,000 square meters, there are 80 tenants. Among those tenants, we found even the royal family. We have Amazon, we have Microsoft, we have ourselves, we have PR agencies of the big DJs. And all those kind of companies are working together to see if they can, let's say, keep each other performing better, but also to teach each other what is an entrepreneur and how you can make your business better. For instance, Singularity University is in this building. They pay 50% less lease and they give workshops every month. So there is also a different way of doing your lease and performing the building. And what you also see on the right photo is that we created a complete wooden space. So we changed a bit the building, and I think I will have that one here. Yeah, this was the former building 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. You see it's an old-fashioned marmor facade kind of closed building in the CBD in Amsterdam, so like it's our city, but it was empty and it had a very empty courtyard, and we changed completely this building within the business model of just giving normal leases which were allowed and which were normal also in this area. And we created a complete new building out of it. So we added some extra space. We topped off the old, if you see here, maybe if I go back, the top third floor we demolished in a circular way, and we built a pavilion out of that somewhere else in Amsterdam. We demounted the marble and we changed the marble into the new floor of this building. I will show you later. All the material it's around the new facade is a cradle-to-cradle facade, and the top 2 floors are fully in wood. It's fully wood construction, and that helps also to make the building more sustainable. We created a lot of outdoor space. So if you go to the well-being of people, you see that new developments in the office space, outdoor space is extremely important, and if you can manage something like outdoor space, please do so. So we have outer space on the roof, so no extra square meters for offices, and we have outdoor space down, or maybe I think I have that one here. You see the top middle photo, that's also outdoor space down, where people can sit, where people can talk, where people can even work. There's also Wi-Fi. And due to the climate, we have more sun in the summers, even in Amsterdam. So outer space is used a lot. So you see the floor here. We would never make a marble floor in an office, too expensive. But if you can create it out of the former space and the former office, you easily can play with that. But you have to change your supply chain. And we did it ourselves. We brought the marble to somebody was out of the building in the construction industry. They made a new floor out of it, and we brought it back, and it was cheaper than a normal floor. So you can also be more cost efficient if you change a building in a circular way. Yeah, that's a business case. It's more, we have really made it a new building with old elements. And it's easy. You made it even easily, you make from an old building a smart building. If you also are, let's say, can influence all the materials and the suppliers. And so we made really deals with big suppliers. No middleman, no wholesalers in between, directly with the contractor. Going to well-being. The building that you saw, we have reached their core and shell platinum. And apart from that, one floor we made also platinum interior, which is according to the version that we used, the first in the world. It's not easy, I fully agree, it's not an easy task to do, but it's a lot of fun to get it done, as long as your tenants and the people who are working in the building are passionate to do so, because it's not just a normal development. You really have to do something for it, but see us jumping there, a lot of people are jumping through the building. People really like it to have those daylights, to have wood around you, to have different spaces, to have, let's say, not, just a very small example, people were drinking Coca-Cola in our building, and we had to change that to only small cans. So you don't have the big cans anymore, you only have the small and only the zero ones. And yeah, people argue for one day and then it's over. So there is also coming a new kind of flow into people's minds, and they take that with them home. So we have different caterers who came into the building, different suppliers. We changed our supplier market. We use different contractors to make this building a different way. It's also a bit a lab for the International Well Building Institute, because they've tried out a lot of things, and they played also their sensors in the building apart from our sensors to see if they were in balance. And we currently are making a system which is mobile, that we can do the same here in all kind of other buildings. But in 2 weeks we can, let's say, see how you have to change a building. I'll come back to that. I said already, the workforce is a big topic in a lot of companies. We just signed a contract with Google yesterday because they also want to be in a building like this. And you see that they started with it 20 years ago almost, with themselves in Silicon Valley. But you see that the Amazons and the LinkedIns and the Googles, but not only them, we're currently working for about 4 or 5 banks in the Netherlands. They're all going to change into this way of working. They open their, I'm not sure if that's going to happen here, but in the Netherlands and Denmark, you see that there is a big change on how to use buildings. We did the ING headquarters, for instance, in Amsterdam. They opened the whole ground floor. If you are in Amsterdam, you want to go to ING, you can work there. They have 3 different bars, it's all green. And they like that you're coming to work there and tell something about what you find about the space. So you see that all those companies, they like to get people in instead of people out. So everybody's looking for those skilled workforce, and then you have to do something different with your building. The light, you don't want to sit in this place anymore. I hope you don't do, but we have to be engaged in our buildings, otherwise people are not coming anymore to the office. Very simple, people stay out. And if people are uninspired, they do not perform. They really do perform less than they thought they would do. So you have to make the space good and nice and better than you had done that before. It's not that easy anymore. The fact is that people go for a certain reason to an office. And we said here a few things, is that they are not happy with their space anymore. They want to change spaces whenever they can. They don't want to be at 11 o'clock in the office and the space is left. They also want to have a quality space if they come a bit later into the office. And we create that for them. And yes, sometimes that costs a little bit more money, but if you compare that to this, that 1 to 5 people are sick out of the office, you have no clue how much money that will cost you. I think you all know this once. I think this is already going on for a few years. And I calculated for myself, and I'm an outdoor guy, but I came to 91%. So many times I'm inside. And it's crazy how much time we are inside. And of that 90%, you have to calculate which part of the time you're in the office. It's a bit scary. So make the office a place to stay, and to stay also healthy. So we believe that the solution is under the roof of all your buildings and everywhere where you work, but you have to do something for it, and you have to change, let's say, also the thinking of changing your office. And we believe in a lot of daylight, and we can also steer the daylight by using different lights in our building. So we work closely to Philips lighting, which today is Signify, to see how we can change light in the office and also change circadian light during the day, which is a big thing, not easy. But we also can drop down by my iPhone the lux of your space, which is also, I think, and for energy reasons, but also for the feeling how you are in that office, important. So we create daylight offices, we almost call them. And circadian light, downlights is coming in much more. Important if you want to concentrate better. You can, the circadian light is going with the, let's say, the flow of the day. Nature is a big thing. We have created extremely much, we almost call it a jungle in our office. You see that much more, it's coming up very, very fast. You have to be aware that it needs maintenance. Green needs a lot of maintenance. We thought it was an easy thing, but our maintenance costs only for green raised a bit much. But I come back on a Leesman survey that we did. The green is the best thing that we ever did in an office and brings much more back than it cost us. Imagine what happens in your brain if you are concentrating and somebody is disturbing you. So if you only work in open offices, that's a big debate in, I think, a lot of countries. That's the first thing. Concentration is a big thing, but moving in the office is another big thing. If you move for 2 minutes after 20 minutes, you're already much more and better in your performance than if you sit for an hour. And so your brain is moving in a different way than you think. So if you go for a coffee, you have to take a stair. It already brings you to a different level. We don't notice that ourselves, but it's really, try to do so. It's really happening. And I think sitting, you know what it is. We create in all our buildings, and you see it everywhere. Go to the Bloomberg building here in London, and it also has that circular stairs. And they start on the 5th floor, and then you go down into the office. In our office, the restaurant is on the 3rd floor, not on the ground floor. If you're on the ground floor, you stay there, you come there, you drink your coffee. You put it on the 3rd floor, and people take stairs up to the 3rd floor, not to the 4th. It's also proven, but to the 3rd floor, they easily take it. And if you, let's say, move your elevators a little bit away, it's almost a mess on the stairs during lunchtime, but also during evenings and mornings. And we created even islands on the stairs where people can meet and talk and so on. It really helps. But don't make your stairs black. That costs you a lot of maintenance as well, because you see everything on black. But that's the designer. We used also for this part a designer of a hospitality interior designer and not an office designer. Maybe you're aware of the hotel chain Citizen M. They have also a few hotels here in London, where everything is around the lounge in hotels. We use the same architects here, and they really created an entry. We have now even no security gates anymore. The security is walking around, we don't see them. And so you change also that way of habits, of that you have a pass, you have to go to security, they ask you who you are, and it's not happening in this office. And there are big companies, Japanese banks, lawyers, all kind of different companies, and they are easily going with a different way of working. They have to get adapted to it, but the moment they are adapted to it, they love it. Yeah, that's a no-brainer. If you have a lot of social interaction, because everything is open, so the atrium in our building is also open, so I can hear almost people on the other level, which is a different company. But due to the fact that we created white noise, or even biophilic white noise, which covers, let's say, the noise of the atrium, and it's done by a waterfall, you can concentrate much better, and it's, let's say, covers the hex of what's happening in the atrium, and you can easily work. But if you want to talk to people, if you want to go to a network event, which is there every day, if you want to go to a keynote in, we call it a cuddle puddle, everything is allowed and you can everything do, and there's a little buzz in the building. But if you want to concentrate, you close somewhere a door, you go to a concentration office, you're okay. This is how a day could be. This is my day, one of my days that I had, how I flowed through the building, and I used, in this day, 7 different places to work, through the building itself. And we don't talk anymore about productivity. I think the Well Institute is also not talking about productivity anymore. We talk about performance, which is still hard to measure, but you can also measure how people feel during the day. And we do that by Leesman surveys to see how people feel and what they like to do better and more. This is very small, and it's more the explanation of what we do. This is the design of a building we're doing in Berlin currently, which will be delivered at the end of July, where I think Oracle is one of the tenants. We check the design, how people work in certain parts of the building, done by Leesman data. With the Leesman data, we went to our interior designers and to our exterior designers, and we designed the building around that data of Leesman, which Oracle did before they went to this building. So we use data in interior design to see how people work and how they act in the building. And we make this building also pretty flexible, so that if it doesn't work, we can still change the different elements and different rooms in the building. How do we measure stuff? That's the most difficult thing. We can measure a lot, but measuring performance is still very difficult. So we do a kind of workplace performance check. So we offer our clients to do a survey with all their employees before they're going to move to another building or before they do their redevelopment of a building. And we do it again when they are in the building for after 3 to 6 months. And then we compare the things, what we do. So with the first data, we try to change the building and go with the interior architect to see what we are going to do. But apart from an interior architect, you have a lot of scientific and I even don't know how you call it in English, but people really understand your and my brain, and they are part of the design team. So if you look to our company, we had normal technical developers. They are still part of the team, but we have 4 or 5 different roles in that team, as we have not think about that 4 or 5 years before. So even HR is part of a design team. HR is or P&O, or you want to call it, but that's a big thing in larger companies, that they are part of your design team and think with you how people work in their best way. What we also do is that we currently creating a new company, which is will be something like Edge Smart. We don't have a name yet, and we come into old spaces. We place mobile sensors and we measure the whole building, from humidity to CO2 to temperature to all kind of other data, to anyway already start by thinking how can we make the building, let's say, healthier or more sustainable, also on energy level. And together with Leesman, who does the personal survey, we have data and a personal survey together. And with that, with these 2 elements, we're going to start to see how we can change, let's say, the interior and the exterior of a building. Yeah, here I think you know, hopefully one of the researches that JLL did is that if you really look to how people or an HR of the company are looking to people and what is the value of people in a company, if you compare that with the square meter price of your lease, it's 10 to 90 almost. And so why don't you spend a little bit more money in making a building perform better for your people, so that sick leave is going to go down and you have people who are happy. That's a big thing which is currently a big trend in corporate offices and corporate real estate. Yeah, but this is going to go to technical. So what we do is that we combine data and Leesman, and we make these kind of graphics out of that, and we talk that over with our tenants and our clients. And what we show in the building, this is coming out of let's say, all the screens which in our building, is how much energy do we save if you compare it to a household. How do people move in buildings? And if we know how people move in buildings, we know which parts of the building are really well used or not well used. Do we have to change them? Then we're going to talk to the people and see what we can do. How we change the inner conditions of that. So there's a lot of easy things that you can share with your people and with your tenants. And we have about 900 tenants in this, 900 employees in this building of 80 tenants. And we inform them almost daily what's going on. Yeah, this is also, how does that work, is that we have all kind of, in a kind of planning, we have a lot of different checks, we have a lot of different projects that we do with tenants, and they have after 12 months a kind of end result. And here you see, if you compare that to Leaseman, and Leaseman is doing a survey how employees think about their workspace, you see that what we noticed is that people like to have much more concentration spaces, for instance. We didn't have enough concentration spaces. So what we did is that we changed our phone booths, which mostly are very small, we changed them into almost informal meeting rooms. So they became 3 times bigger. So still you can call there yourself, but also you have almost your own one-day office. And if you look to how people like an atria in a building, because that's a connective way of seeing other persons. If you see it to the average compared to our building, an atrium is a big thing for, let's say, the type of employees and tenants that are in our building. And a big one is also quiet rooms. There are, in most offices, not enough quiet rooms where people can concentrate, can read their spaces and contract, can do a short phone call or have a conference call. So we created more quiet spaces than we had before. So what we currently do, we like to be a bit front runner in this way of thinking, is that you see that big universities like MIT, like Harvard, they work on the future of workspace, and we're going to work with them in the US to see if we can scientifically see what we can change more on a workplace. They have extremely much data about a lot of buildings around the globe, and we see if we can help them and they help us in how we can change floor plans, in seeing how people's minds reacted to the floor plans that we have today. We did something also with some folks here from London, from the University College London, and a startup called Lease. Is that we checked the amount of daylight that you get during the day. And that's not only for in your office, but also when you're in your car, when you're at home, when you're going out, or when you're on holiday. What happens in 2 weeks' time with the daylight where you're working in? And every day you could see the report yourself, and you could see, and even notifications on your phone. If you were 45 minutes in a little bit a darker call booth or a phone booth, immediately will say, you have had so much daylight now, this is not good, take your phone, get a walk or whatever, because this is not helping you to be performing better. And it's a very small sensor you put on your shirt, and it really changed my behavior of working in a company, in our office. And we did that with about 40 people, and the data that came out of that is that we really changed a lot of spaces in on our office space, and we have said now all workspaces where you sit more than 1 hour should be at least 7 meters or closer to the window, to daylight, or to the atrium. So that's also one of the restrictions in the BREEAM. But you see, if you go a step out of that, then immediately you notice that it's not going to work, and it's a really fun. Almost gadgets to try that out. If these Lease sensors, they cost about 80 pounds, and you get the software connected to that, and it opened my eyes and it opened our eyes, and it's today our giveaway to new tenants, and it really works. You see here, for instance, is that now we changed it. If you see the average office and how you're influenced by daylight, how close it is, very low. And if you make it daylight office, it's going 3 times better. And for sure, we believe that it's improved performance of our people in Amsterdam. We did it also in our office in Berlin, and there we came to 20 instead of what we do in Amsterdam at 52, because that's an old office in the city center, old East Berlin, small windows, immediately it goes down. Yeah, so what we created is, we call it an ecosystem if you come to well-being on workplace. And we work with a lot of companies together. And you don't see it at Well Institute, but that's our partner in all buildings that we do. And that's for us a given. But we also work with a university in the Netherlands, in London, in the US. And we even started a kind of trust to see if we can increase the well-being of people in buildings. So out of that, we created a new type of building, which we call the Edge. We will Edge. And we currently, since last year, we're doing 12 developments around the globe, which all have those elements of well-being and sustainability in them. And have those green elements as well. And all our teams and all our people work in the same way in all those kind of buildings, doesn't matter where we are. 50% of those buildings is redevelopment, 50% is new builds. And we believe in that way, we see that cities really like to have these kind of buildings in the cities as well. That was a bit, I think I'm exactly on, I'm almost on 45 minutes. So the world needs better buildings. And we try to make a very small part of that. And hopefully you have learned a little bit of what we are doing. There is so much to tell and there's so much to do. But please focus on the health of your people in your buildings, the health of yourself. And as a last kind of advice, it will not cost you much more money. That's a good thing because you get much more things back, but you have to see the big perspective of it and combine things and not only look to construction costs. We are in the future build. And I think the future is that you combine the people's mentality, the people's health together with the construction materials you have in your building. And then you can do a lot. The floor is now to you if you have any question. We have to see it if we can see it in this way. What I learned is that when you have a question, you raise your hand. My lovely assistant has a microphone. And then I try to answer your questions also with a headset on my head.
Hello, I'm Rafael Diez from Viga, from Spain, and I have a question. What do you think of plants at work? As much as possible, only a few, there's a proportion?
What we did in the building that you saw before, and if you go to our website, we have also made some movies out of that, is that the lounge area and the entrance area, there is extremely much green. And there people meet, there people stay for not a long time, and there people have, let's say, the first wow effect of the building. If you go to the certain levels of the building, we do it less. So for instance, in our kitchen we have a lot, and between, let's say, group of 6 or 8 tables or workspaces, yes we have, but not everywhere a lot. That's too much. That does not work. Then it's really getting a bit annoyed even. So it should also be functional, but it should be also part of your design. So you will see in workspaces it's less, and it's all concentrated together. And if you see it here, this picture, for instance, is on the ground floor, where we have round tables. Around those round tables, you're almost into the green. As well as, for instance, the restaurant is extremely green. When you go to workplaces, we do it less, because it sometimes also disturbs. And it disturbs the maintenance, then disturbs also as well. But it's on certain zones. We created almost small forests in which people can go from one to the other. It's also for acoustics very well, and that will help a lot as well. So it's apart from that you make a kind of acoustical wall, we make it a green wall, which is almost the same, let's say, requirements and characteristics as plants.
Thank you very much, and congratulations for this lecture.
Oh, you're welcome.
Hiya, I'm Alexia from Lansec, working in sustainable design. I just wondered, do you apply the same principles to your back of house and back of house areas, or do you focus primarily on your tenanted or regularly occupied areas?
What we normally do is about 30% of our buildings we're mostly together with flexible operators like Spaces, WeWork or another, or we do it ourselves. So that part we always do, and together with those kind of flexible operators we design them together, and we will, let's say, almost force them to do it the way we have put in our blueprint. If we do it ourselves, we mostly do a little bit more because you have to find a midway. If the flexible operator will not do it in that way, we will not work with them, because that it's a concept that we have for every building. So the tenant should, let's say, follow what we do. If the other 70% where we have smaller and bigger tenants, we have a certain minimum of requirements for their interior. We don't say you cannot work with that one or that one, but please follow these kind of steps that we do, of which let's say the certificate for well is one of the elements. We don't say you have to do a well interior, because that's not a really easy one, because that also goes into your furniture and about the way you work. But yes, you have to follow certain guidelines, and we discussed that. And it's not an easy one. For instance, I told you about the Amazon building. The guideline is that we work with Windows. So we use Azure as a cloud, which is a Microsoft element, and we asked Amazon to work with Microsoft. They said no. And that's so there we will change, but still the whole green part and the whole well part, they took it over. And so it's not that we enforce them totally, but at least 80% of the guidelines we are okay with that. So we are in their design teams of what we do. Thank you very much, and it was good to see you all.